Well, today we are continuing our series, I Wish I Would Have. And the title of my message today is, I Wish I Would Have Made a Comeback. I wish I would have made a comeback. I Googled what is the largest comeback victory in NFL history. And I discovered it happened a few months ago and involved my beloved Indianapolis Colts. Unfortunately, they were not the team that made the comeback. If you remember watching that game, the Colts were playing the Minnesota Vikings. The game was in Minnesota, and it looked like just the Colts were unstoppable. Matter of fact, at halftime, the Colts were winning 33-0. Announcers shared how hundreds of Viking fans at halftime left the stadium. So you know they're not true fans. Hundreds left. And in the third quarter, Colts are up 33-0. And then I'm going to show you what happened. Warning, if you are a Colts fan like I am, this footage may be painful. Check out what happened.
Third and goal. Cousins wide open. Perfectly delivered. A lot of motion for Cook. Fake it to him on the pitch. Hand it to him. It's a touchdown. Cousins. Oh, he had Hawks there. Instead, he's got Jefferson. Play action for Cousins. Looking end zone open. Touchdown.
Oh, that's not good.
They're going to set up the screen with Dalvin Cook and let him chew up the yards.
Oh.
Dalvin Cook is going to be with blockers. Cousins lets it go. Cousins. First down, Osborne. KJ has been a superstar for a potential field goal attempt. Cousins lets it fly. It's caught. They have to. And it is to the ball. It's Jefferson getting the extra yard for the NFC North. And the kick is good.
It's good. Oh, to my Colts fans, painful, painful, painful. But man, the Minnesota Vikings came back, had the greatest comeback, and down 33-0. What a comeback. You know, we've all experienced setbacks, and all the Colts fans can now say amen. Next year, I'm hoping my message will be a little different. The Colts will be making a comeback, but we've all experienced setbacks. In life, we have felt like we were down 33-0. Down 33-0 with your family. Down 33-0 with your marriage, in a friendship. Down 33-0 in your finances. 33-0 in your health, down 33-0 in your career. We've all been down 33-0. And in the middle of a setback, we can feel like those Minnesota Vikings fans felt at halftime. I'm done. I quit. I'm leaving. There is absolutely no chance, no hope. We might as well give up because there's no way a comeback could happen. But no matter how severe the setback, you can make a comeback. Even if you are down 33-0, you can experience the greatest comeback because we serve the God of the comeback. He specializes in comeback. David came back from adultery and murdered and was called a man after God's own heart and led Israel as king. Elijah went from the height of victory to the depths of depression, but he made a comeback and God used him powerfully. Samson disobeyed God, lost his strength, was captured, was a prisoner, was ridiculed and mocked, but he called out to God and he made a comeback and defeated his enemies. Moses murdered a man ran away from his purpose, struggled with fear, but he answered the call again and made a comeback to lead the nation of Israel out of slavery in Egypt. And Jesus, he hung, he bled, he died on a cross, and he was put in a borrowed grave. But we know 3 days later, he had the largest comeback in history when he rose from that grave. He defeated death, hell, and the grave. Come on, would you give God praise and thank him? He's a God of the comeback. He's a God of the comeback. And today, we're going to look at the comeback story of Peter. If you're not familiar with this story, he denied Jesus 3 times as Jesus was arrested, beaten, dying on the cross. Peter blew it big time. And I want to first share some insights that led to Peter's setback. The first thing I want you to see is this, is that he relied on his own strength. Listen to what Jesus told Peter in Matthew chapter 26, verse 31. It says, "Then Jesus told them, 'This very night you will all fall away on account of me. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered.'" Look at Peter's response in Matthew 26:33. Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." Come on, Peter was puffing up his chest. He was pretty confident in his own strength. They may all, Jesus, but Jesus, I never will. Listen to what he says in Matthew 26:35. But Peter declared, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the other disciples said the same. Peter said, I will never, I'll never do that. I'm with you and I'll stick with you. And he's just talking about himself. He is relying on his own strength. He's leaning on his own strength. And regret is always right around the corner when we lean on our own strength. Regret is always around the corner when we're like, I got this. I'm the only one. I'll do this. But when we rely on our own strength. Notice what happens next. Number 2, he reacted without thinking. Matthew chapter 26, verse 69 and 70. It says, "Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. 'You also were with Jesus of Galilee,' she said, but he denied it before them all." "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Peter was relying on his own strength. And in the heat of the moment, he reacted and denied Jesus. So many regrets happen because we reacted. We reacted and said something hurtful. We reacted and did something we regret. We reacted and we reacted and we lied. We reacted and had the fling. We reacted and did the drug. We reacted and we bought the item at 30% interest with money that we don't even have. Reacting without thinking leads to regret. Then thirdly, he caved to the crowd. You can read it yourself, but in Matthew 26, 72 and 74, Peter denied Jesus 2 more times to the crowd. So much regret is centered around caving into people, trying to fit in, trying to please people, trying to be liked or loved, trying to make people happy. So many students do stupid things they regret because they cave to the crowd. Come on, even adults do stupid things because they cave to the crowd. They cave to culture. They cave to relationships or a friendship. And then comes regret. He caved to the crowd. And then fourthly, he went backwards instead of forwards. When we pick up the story of Peter, several days after his setback, he had went back to his old life and career. Look at John 21, verse 3. He says, I'm going out to fish, Simon Peter told him. And they said, we'll go with you. So they went out and got into the boat. But that night they caught nothing. Peter went back to fishing. He went back to his old life. He went back to what was familiar. He went back to the very thing that God called him from and called him out of. Jesus said, come and follow me. I'll teach you how to fish for men. And Peter followed him, but then he had a setback and he went back to the very old thing that God called him away from. And some of you, you have allowed regret to take you back to old friends, old thinking, old relationships, old bad habits. You've allowed regret to take you back to some old things that God had called you out of and said, no, that's not my plan. That's not my purpose. But regret has caused you to go back to those old relationships, to those old thought patterns. See, regret can either suck the life out of you and take you backwards, or you can allow it to be the fuel that drives you forward to a comeback. I want you to begin to use regret as fuel for your comeback. Fuel for your comeback. And so today, I want to give you 3 catalysts to a comeback. 3 catalysts to a comeback. Number 1 is this: choose to reflect over regret. Choose to reflect over regret. The difference between reflecting and regretting is that when you regret, you look back and you focus on the losses. But when you reflect, you look back for lessons. Let me say that again. When you regret, you look back and you're just focused on losses. But when you reflect, you look back at the lessons. Learning the lessons leads to blessings. Snap that, right? Or whatever you want to do with it. But learning the lessons leads to blessings. Staying stuck on the losses only costs us. And so let me teach you some effective ways to reflect. First, a part of reflecting is grieving. A part of reflecting is grieving. Look at Matthew 26:75. It says, then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. And the Bible says he went outside and wept bitterly. Peter grieved his mistakes. As you choose to reflect on your past regrets, it's necessary to embrace what you lost. It's okay. Listen, be honest with yourself about the mistake, the pain, who you lost, and what you lost. Grieving is a part of reflecting. And to get past your past, you have to face your past. And part of that is you got to confess it and weep over it. See, grief is the way you get through the loss, the transition, and failure in life. You can't go around it. You have to go through it. But you got to go through it and not live in it. Let me say that again. With grief, listen, you can't go around it. You have to go through it. But you have to go through it, not live in it. See, reflecting is how you learn from it. Grieve and learn, don't grieve and repeat. Grieve and learn, don't grieve and repeat. You can't come back if you keep repeating it. I don't know what it's like, but I will do it. I will revisit what I did, what I said, situations, mistakes, leadership decisions, and learn from them. Most people never learn from regret, and so they repeat and they stay in defeat. Learn and grow, don't repeat and stay in defeat. I'm rhyming this morning. Learn and grow. Don't repeat and stay in defeat. And so as you reflect, got to reflect. Grieving is part of reflecting. Let me give you the second catalyst, and that's this. Choose community over isolation. Choose community over isolation. In this story, both Judas and Peter made mistakes and were full of regret. Judas betrayed Jesus. Peter said, I'll never disown you, and then disowned him 3 times. The difference is Judas went off by himself, got alone in his thoughts, and took his life. But Peter went back to his brothers. A big part of his comeback was he chose community over isolation. Easter morning, the disciples, they were all together. Look at John 20:2-3. We see that after Jesus' death, Peter is with his brothers. It says, so she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, they have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him. So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Peter blew it big time, and he was full of regret, but he ran to community rather than to isolation. A catalyst to your comeback is you got to lean into others instead of our tendency to isolate, to go inward, to run away from people. When you go through a major failure, loss, setback, you have to resist the urge to isolate and insulate yourself. Resist the temptation to process all by yourself. See, the enemy's scheme is he wants to get you all by yourself, just like Judas. And nothing good comes from staying all by yourself when you're experiencing a setback. And so don't believe the lie. Don't buy into the lie of the enemy. Too many people, they allow condemnation and guilt and the grief to cause them to go into isolation. No. Listen, too many people think, well, what are people going to think about me? I'm sure Peter was probably embarrassed and like, man, in front of all those dudes, I said, I'll never disown you. I'll die with you. And then I denied him. But I thank God that Peter swallowed his pride and he went back to his brothers. His brothers say, hey, man, it's okay. We've blown it too. We've messed up too. Come on, we're going to stay together. We're going to do this thing together. We're with you. Listen, you have people in your life. And if you don't, get in a small group, get connected. Find there are people in your life, they're not going to beat you up, they're going to pick you up. People in your life that are going to be humble enough to say, man, I've blown it too, and I've messed up too, but I'm with you and I'm beside you. Choose community over isolation. Number 3, choose the voice of Jesus over the voice of the enemy. When you have a setback, the enemy, the accuser, the liar, will tell you it's over. You'll never come back from what happened. The enemy's whispering in your ear, you are down 33-0 in life. It's over. Give up. Quit. Throw in the towel. You are finished. But let me tell you what Jesus says to you after your setback. He said it to Peter, and he's saying it to you. Here's the first thing that Jesus is saying to you. He's saying, I am not shocked by your setback. Jesus told Peter he was going to deny him. Peter, you are going to make some big mistakes. I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised by your mistakes. Peter, I know you're going to mess up even before you mess up. Hear me today. God's not surprised by your failure, your mistakes, and your setbacks. And he still loves you. He didn't dismiss Peter. He didn't say, Peter, get away from me. He still loved him and cared for him and did life with him. Jesus said, I am not shocked by your setback. Secondly, he's saying, I am praying for you. Look at Luke chapter 22, verse 31 and 32. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. But I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. Before Peter ever made his big mistake, Jesus said, not only am I not shocked by it, but I'm praying for you before, during, and after the mistake. Jesus knows one of the devil's greatest weapons is to kick you when you're down. It's to take your failure and rub it in your face. It's to sift you as wheat, to kill, steal, and destroy you. And Jesus said, I know the enemy's plans, and I'm praying that your failure will not destroy your faith. Right now, Jesus is praying for you. Right now, Jesus is interceding for you. He is standing in the gap between your failure and your faith. He says, I'm praying for you. And then the third thing he says to you is, I still believe in you and your comeback. I still believe in you and your comeback. Before Peter ever failed, Jesus prophesied his setback, but he also prophesied his comeback. Look back at Luke 22:32. It says, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. Jesus said, when you turn back, when you make your comeback, not if, but when. Jesus said, I know you're going to have a setback, but I also know you are going to make a comeback. I believe in you. I seen you. I made you. I created you. Don't let your setbacks disqualify you from a comeback. Come on, somebody needs to hear this today. Your setback is just a chapter in your book. It's not the entire story. It's just a chapter. It's just a comma, not a period. And Jesus is the author of your story. Jesus is the one with the holds the pen to your story, and he has more of your story to write. So get back up and move forward. Look at Proverbs 24:16. It says, for though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. Everybody say, rise again. Come on, rise again. Get back up. Don't stay down. Get up. Listen, Peter got back up, moved forward, and preached the first message on the day of Pentecost, and 3,000 people were saved that day. He made a comeback. God continued to use Peter mightily to build his church. And just like Peter, God has more for your life, but you have to get up. Stop allowing regret to keep you from what God has next in your life. Stop allowing your past defeats to rob you of your future victories. Listen, I got this basketball here, all right? And come on, I can dribble with my right hand. If I did my left, we might be in trouble. But the beautiful thing about a basketball is a basketball was created to bounce back. It was created to bounce and to bounce back into my hand. And so the creator of the basketball, when he made this basketball, he made it out of material so that the basketball would bounce up. It would bounce back. And I need you to know today that God created you with material to bounce back. That you may feel that you're down 33-0 in your marriage and life and relationships. But God, he made you with material to bounce back, to have a comeback. Your finances can bounce back. Your work